speaking of vaccines, mandatory vaccination, etc., back to the story we've been tracking for quite some time here on ENCA. The Commission for Gender Equality has backtracked on comments it made about vaccinations. The Commission quoted a study on the impact on pregnant women and possible negative consequences. The CGE also warned against imposing mandatory COVID-19 vaccine policies. It has now retracted its statement unreservedly. Commissioner Busisiwe Deyi speaks to us now. And before we go any further, Commissioner, just to correct myself there in my introduction, I think your focus on that study was about the impact of vaccines on the menstrual cycles of women, and also you were concerned about what you termed long-term effects thereof. But you are backtracking altogether. What happened?
Well, Busisiwe, upon the issuing of that initial January 16th statement, we were approached by various gender activists and various associations and health workers who helped us through understanding what the study was actually saying, and that it did not rise, the impact of the COVID vaccine on the menstrual cycle did not rise to the level of breaching the sexual and reproductive rights and human dignity of women and persons with wombs. And therefore we were, our attention was brought to various other studies, such as in the United Kingdom, similar studies in the United Kingdom and Norway, that came out with similar results. I think that the United Kingdom study was very clear that a change in the length of menstrual cycle was not only temporary, but it was not the result of an impact on the functioning of the womb or any fertility issues, and therefore that link could not be made as clearly as the statement seemed to make it. So upon receiving that information, we as the Commission for Gender Equality initiated internal processes in order to address the inaccuracies in the initial statement.
But the information you are citing now was already out there in the public domain at the time at which you pulled the trigger. It seems to me like you basically adopted a shoot now, ask questions later approach. You wanted to make the point about mandatory vaccines, and in the maelstrom of it all, you swept in everything, and you even suggested that you were worried about long-term effects, etc., when all of this information you're talking about was already out in the public domain.
Unfortunately, Busisiwe, the portfolio for communications rests within the office of the chairperson. And the chairperson is in charge, or the office of the chairperson, rather, is in charge of responding to matters that impact on women's and people's with wombs' sexual and reproductive health rights. The matter and the study, the initial study, was presented to us by the deputy chairperson, and at the time the conclusions that were brought to us by the deputy chairperson, as she stipulated in her interview with Kathy. Upon subsequent reading by various other commissioners, including myself, of the actual study, we had to then interrogate some of the information that the office of the chairperson had put in the statement through the deputy chairperson, and we had to rectify the issues. And in holding ourselves accountable, unfortunately, in adopting a trusting position towards leadership, unfortunately, it allowed certain matters to slip through the cracks. So we do take accountability for the lack of verification in terms of the clinical findings and the accuracy thereof that was contained in the statement. I think the leadership of the office of the chairperson was very concerned about what that statement seemed to be supporting, and wanted to retract completely and unreservedly some of the contents of that statement.
Yeah. Accountability, great. We welcome that, you taking accountability. But we still need to understand how such a thing could happen. Not only were the other studies that you talked about a few moments ago already out in the public domain, but even the study that was the basis of your position on mandatory vaccines and your concerns around the impact on women and menstrual cycles, etc. Even that study, you did not read it accurately as the Commission. How was that even possible? Did you even read the entire statement, or the deputy chairperson, whom I understand is the person who brought this to the table at the CGE, did she even read the entire study, or was it just a summary and the summary was enough, shoot now and ask questions later?
Well, I think that those questions, which are important questions, which are pertinent questions, should be put to the deputy chairperson herself. I do think that in her reasoning with her initial interview, she seemed to want to focus on or have a concern about if the short-term effects are X, then we need to put in resources into doing more investigations that are based in South Africa in order for us to understand the long-term effects. So I think her reasoning was, let us protect now in order for us to be able to prevent any future possible negative consequences. You will understand, Tula, that this comes, or this concern is at the front of the CGE's mind, as we had released a report on forced sterilization. So this dialogue around the continued violations of women and the reproductive system has been something that has been of great concern within the CGE.
I'm running out of time.
Yes, sorry.
Acknowledging that something went wrong is not accountability. Accountability is accepting the consequences of getting it wrong. So my question to you in part, as a parting shot, should the accountability, ultimate accountability, fall on the deputy chairperson for having undermined our campaign on vaccinations, possibly causing and exacerbating vaccine hesitancy amongst women? And should the same type of ultimate accountability fall on you, yourselves as commissioners, for allowing your name to be attached to a statement that was based on a study that none of you had read at that point? That's dereliction on your part, and the damage is done. Why should we keep you? Why should we keep you as commissioners, all of you, deputy chairperson, yourself, and every other commissioner?
I think you are correct, Tula. I think that accountability should follow. I think that we should be held accountable around the gaps that we allowed. And I think that we should be investigated, and we welcome investigations. I think it is important. I think accountability is about that. But at an institutional level, we are going to ensure that we take proactive steps, as our retraction did state, to commit to financing education drives to rectify any false news and misinformation that might have resulted from the initial statement. As for internal investigation, I have not been privy at the moment to any discussions within the Office of the Chairpersons around individual accountability, but through the conversations that we've had, I think that raising these concerns were initiated immediately by commissioners, and I think that should an investigation into this matter, the public will then be privy to how the individual commissioners reacted in addressing some of these issues.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time there, Commissioner Busisiwe Deyi from the Commission for Gender Equality, just clarifying the reasons why they are at this point retracting wholly that whole statement that they had some time ago, mid-January, that basically was casting aspersions on the issue of vaccination and how they were suggesting that actually it could have long-term effects.